This is Right to Life Radio with John Gerardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Gerardi.
So, Jonathan, if I were to ask you, Jonathan, are you going to cheat on your wife or not? And the answer you gave me was, I think I'm going to form a commission to examine the question.
Yes.
How much confidence should I have in the fidelity you would be, expressing in your marriage?
Probably not a whole lot.
Probably not a whole lot.
It reminds me of the Babylon Bee article that said a fiance says he will announce his position on adultery after the wedding.
After the wedding, exactly. Right to Life Radio. John Gerardi, Jonathan Keller here with you. Jonathan Keller, the CEO of California Family Council. I, John Gerardi, the Executive Director of Right to Life of Central California. We're talking about court packing because one of the most important issues in this election is what will happen to the Supreme Court, because what happens to the Supreme Court impacts what will happen to abortion law throughout the country. Now, Jonathan and I have been talking for weeks and weeks and weeks on this show. Democrats, even before Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, many Democrats were agitating. Many people, many wonderful people, as Donald Trump loves to say. Many people are saying, many Democrats were saying, even before Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and this has ramped up since her death, that if the Republicans fill her seat with Amy Coney Barrett, which is going to happen on Monday.
Don't you do it.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it. If the Republicans do that, that Democrats should respond by effectively packing the Supreme Court, by increasing the number of justices on the Supreme Court in order to achieve a certain desired ideological balance, as the Democrats like to say, or as we would like to say, giving the Democrats a big majority on the court. Now, Biden has been pestered on this repeatedly since Ginsburg's death. What do you think, Mr. Biden? What is your position, Mr. Biden? Because as recently as 2019, Joe Biden said, no, I don't think we should pack the court. I think that's a bad idea. If we start adding 3, then they add 3. When they're in power, it just turns into a bad thing. Kamala Harris, though, was much more open to what she euphemistically referred to as judicial reform. That was the way she talked about it.
John, I'm not opposed. I'm not in favor of adultery. I just believe in marital reform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to cheat on. I'm not cheating on my wife, but I want to explore some avenues of marital reform. Let's just note,
should
by
go
the
without
way,
saying
that Jonathan is not.
Yes, neither of us. We're both very happily married.
Yeah, very faithfully married, happily married. No, there's no
hanky panky.
No hanky panky is going on here. Anyway, I was just doing that as a provocative example to start the show off with a bang. So anyway, now Biden has, after being asked repeatedly about this, Biden has evaded and said, no, I'm not going to say that's just a distraction. And his various defenders in the media, in the media, and his various spinmeisters trying to defend him are saying, well, this is just a bizarre hypothetical. It's like, yeah, that's what a presidential campaign is. It's a series of hypotheticals you advance and the hypotheticals always start with, if I am elected president, I will, and then you fill in the blank.
You're not president now, so everything is a hypothetical.
Yes, exactly.
Literally every single thing.
If I am elected, I will do X. If I am reelected, I will do Y. That is the point of a presidential campaign. You give people reasons to vote for you based on what you are going to do. So,
and he even said, John, one of the ones that just, again, it blew my mind to hear him say it. He said, no, well, I can't talk about it. They said, but Mr. Biden, what is your position? Mm-hmm. Well, I can't tell you about that, because if I tell you about it, you're going to write about it. It's going to be the front page story. Well, yeah,
of course. It's a really, really, really important issue. Of course we're going to write about it.
Mr. Biden.
And of course the media is like, oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, blah, 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 blah.
Mr. Trump, will you nuke Iran the day after you are sworn into office? Well, look, if I tell you the answer to that question, you're going to write about it. It's going to be a big deal.
I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to make any commitments one way or another. You could just say no. If you're not going to do it, you could just say no. That's the easiest thing to do.
I will form a commission to decide when or if we should nuke Iran.
So Biden's answers to these questions had been, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say anything about court packing until after the I won't tell. Very coy, Mr. Biden. He was basically taking the position of, I'm not going to say what my position on court packing is until after the election. That was what Biden kept saying. At one point, he was asked, don't the American people deserve to know your position on court packing before the election? And he responded, no, no, they don't.
You have to think
forgive me, Right to Life radio audience. I know this is a family show, but the balls it takes to say something like that. Wow.
The unmitigated gall.
The cojones required.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Now, in the last week, Biden has moderated that stance. He has said, no, the American people do deserve to hear before the election. I will let people know where I stand before the election. Okay, sounds good. So that's what he said last week. Now we're coming up to it, okay? Judge Barrett is going to be confirmed to the United States Supreme Court on Monday. So no question, okay? She's passed the Senate Judiciary Committee. In fact, it was a unanimous vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee because the Democrats just did not show up. So instead of a 12-10 divided vote, it was a 12-0 unanimous vote. Her nomination is going to go to the floor of the Senate. She's going to get confirmed. So Joe Biden said, well, I'm going to see whether the Republicans make this a fair process or not, how aggressively they pursue this, and then I'll let the American people know where I stand on court packing. So we now know what's happening, okay? Monday, she's getting confirmed. She's passed the Judiciary Committee. There's no more obstacles that the Democrats can throw in the way of her nomination. She's getting confirmed on Monday. And Biden's response is to do an interview in which he says, well, if I win, I'm going to form a commission to examine the question of whether or not to increase the size of the Supreme Court, to examine court reform. It is now one of the people I follow on Twitter is Ari Fleischer. Fleischer was George W. Bush's old press secretary. He's a very interesting guy to follow on Twitter for a number of reasons. He was also the White House press secretary. He was the White House press secretary during 9/11, and actually he has a really cool thing every September 11th. He gives like an in real time live tweeting of all the stuff that happened that day, which is always very much worth your time to read. Anyway, Ari Fleischer, who's a pretty smart guy,
but also not reflexively pro-Trump. I don't know how he actually voted in 2016, but if you look at him, he is. You might have noticed, John. Some of the listeners might have noticed that not a lot of love lost between the Bush family and the Trump family.
Nope. The Bushes and the Trumps really don't seem to like each other all that much. Anyway, so Ari Fleischer tweeted out, Biden still won't take a position on court packing. He wants to appoint a commission to study it, which is a typical Washington, D.C. punt. Yep. I don't think I've ever seen a weaker leader than Joe Biden. That was Ari Fleischer's words, not mine. But I think it's... I think his analysis is pretty dead on. So one of the other things, so the National Review has a story on it also written by Dan McLaughlin, the title of which is Joe Biden's Court Packing Commission Should Fool Nobody and Satisfy Nobody, which is a pretty fair assessment of it.
I would say, just as a side note, Dan McLaughlin, if you guys don't follow him, he is Baseball Crank on Twitter. He has been on fire this election season on a whole host of issues. And yes, I know we're treading dangerously close to politics, John, but it's the last 2 weeks of the election.
Well, so sure, it's election season, and this is a huge, important election issue that bears very much on abortion.
Yep.
So again, just to reiterate for you all, the idea of court packing, it's very straightforward. It's to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court in order to attain a certain desired outcome. It's something you can do. All you need to do is pass a law. Okay, you need a majority of the House, majority of the Senate, and the president to sign off. Now, there are a number of steps that Biden would have to take to accomplish this. And I think one of the reasons why Biden is hemming and hawing is he knows, one, that it would be very politically unpopular. And two, he does not yet know whether he would have the horses to actually make it happen. Okay, so first of all, he's got to win the election, which not a done deal. Secondly, he's got to make sure that Democrats take control of the Senate, and it can't be like a 50-50 split with just Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. Okay, you got to have like a 50, they've got to have like a 54-46 edge in the Senate before they even try court packing, because there are a number of steps you have to take. One, they would have to eliminate the filibuster in the Senate, which basically what the filibuster rule in the Senate means, for most things in the Senate, you actually need 60 votes rather than 50 plus 1 to advance. For most pieces of legislation, you actually need 60 votes in the Senate rather than 50 plus 1. If you eliminate that rule, which is just an internal Senate rule, it's a 100-year-old internal Senate rule, but it's a good rule, a lot of senators think, because it encourages compromise and collaboration between the two parties. Basically, if you eliminate that rule, that's the first step you would need to take to pack the courts, because there's no way the Republicans would ever allow the Democrats to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court. Whatever minority they have in the Senate, as long as they have 41 members of the Senate, they would use the filibuster to block any change in the number of Supreme Court justices.
And it's not just the Democrats or the GOP. Right now, currently, with the Republicans having a majority, but a bare majority, 53 seats, the Democrats have filibustered way less consequential legislation than
changing the number of justices on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And that's the thing. The reason why they would need a big Senate majority rather than just any Senate majority to eliminate the filibuster is because there are some Democrat senators who don't want to eliminate the filibuster, most notably one of our California senators, Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein's on the record saying, I don't want to eliminate the filibuster rule in the Senate. And frankly, I've never been prouder of her as my senator. But Feinstein's reasoning
might be the only time.
Might be the only time, yeah. But Feinstein's reasoning makes sense. I mean, she's been in the Senate for decades. I honestly don't even know exactly how long she's been in the Senate. She's in her 80s now, and I think by the time her term's over, she'll be 91 years old. But Feinstein has been in the minority, and she has been in the majority of the Senate, and she knows the importance of having the filibuster when you're in the minority. And so she has this experience of telling these these relative, Senate whippersnappers like Elizabeth Warren and Kirsten Gillibrand and Kamala Harris, listen, you guys, like, you're not always going to be in the majority. And when you're in the minority, you're really going to want that filibuster rule to be in place.
Can I just make a quick side note? Has anyone noticed that essentially, since the Democratic primaries, has anyone seen proof of life of Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren?
That's a good question.
It's like,
yeah,
I think
they fell off the face of the earth.
They've been kidnapped by the DNC and hidden away in the secret place. Don't say anything. We can't remind people that you exist.
Yeah, nobody really likes you. Yeah. Please depart.
No, just me, old Joe, hiding in the basement.
Although, actually, frankly, if they wanted any of their base to come out, they should have Bernie out there a little bit more. Anyway, so first they would need to eliminate the filibuster. Then they would need to have a vote on court packing. And one of the things we're seeing now is now that court packing has become kind of a live issue in our politics, we're getting more polling data out about where Americans stand on the issue. It's something like 58% of Americans oppose it, 31% of Americans support it. So the only people in America who support this notion that you should pack the Supreme Court are the most extreme, hardcore people within the Democrat base. Nobody else in America supports it. And it would be... that's the thing why I think Biden doesn't want this to be an issue. I think he thinks, okay, look, if I win and we get a huge majority in the Senate, and my base is really pushing for this, then maybe it's worth the political fight because we could actually accomplish it. But I think what Biden doesn't want to do is, one, get elected and not have a Senate majority to work with, and then basically be stuck with this campaign promise. Two, get elected, have a very narrow Senate majority that can't actually accomplish it, and then he tries to do it and fails, and it's this huge issue in his election and just leads to the Democrats getting blown out in 2022. So he wants to make sure that they have the horses to do it before he actually pulls the trigger. That's why he's taking this kind of gutless position of not saying what he's going to do and having a commission. We'll have more on this after the break. This is Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400 and the iHeartRadio app. From Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. with us on Right to Life Radio. You may be wondering, who the heck is Captain Beefheart? Good question. He's like Frank Zappa, only not so mainstream.
And that's saying
That's
something.
saying something, yeah. I will repeat the story I always tell when we play this Captain Beefheart song on Right to Life Radio. Captain Beefheart once received a request from Bono of U2, whom I despise. Bono from U2 wanted to record with Captain Beefheart or, jam with him or, do something. And Captain Beefheart wrote him back and said, "Dear Bongo, no." And there's nothing that expresses more disdain for your fellow man than just deliberately getting his name wrong.
Bongo.
Yeah. Isn't that right, Fred? Okay.
That's right.
Right to Life Radio with John Gerardi and what's his face? No, Jonathan Keller here with us. All right. We're talking about court packing and Joe Biden's decision to do a non-decision. So Biden has been totally evasive on the question of whether he would expand the number of justices on the Supreme Court in the event that he is elected president. Refused to say. Told people, the American people don't have the right to know what I'm going to do about it before the election. And then finally everyone's like, you got to say something. So he gets some interview and he says, all right, I'm going to form a commission. Like, freaking really, guy? Like, you're going to form a commission.
That's right.
Let's give some context as to what a transparent dodge this is. Joe Biden was on the Senate Judiciary Committee as the top Democrat for 16 years. It's a nice thing about Joe Biden's career is that he's so old and he's been in politics for so long. He's done everything for her. So he was he was the lead Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee for 16 years. He was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee for 6 years. He has given speeches in which he talked about how horrible it was that FDR tried to pack the Supreme Court in 1937. There's no way humanly possible he does not already have a viewpoint on packing the court. He campaigned against it last year. In one of the Democrat debates, he said, packing the Supreme Court's a bad idea. If we do it, then they do it. If we add 3 justices, then they try to add 3 justices. And, next thing you know, we got,
That's the one thing you can give Biden credit for is that throughout his career, he has never been he's never been the most reactionary or the most how do I put this? He has not been at the vanguard of changing his positions. He's been more of an institutionalist.
Yeah, well, one could say he licks his finger, sticks it in the air, and feels which way the wind blows. And when the wind says, hey, you can't really be a pro-life Democrat and have much of a position in leadership, he stops being pro-life. And then he keeps his finger in the air and it says, hey, you can't keep supporting the Hyde Amendment if you want to be president. He changes his position on the Hyde Amendment. So, those are his principles. And if you don't like them, well, he has others, as Groucho Marx once famously said. Now, specifically what Biden said was, I'm going to form a commission to study the question of court packing. He said expanding the number of justices on the Supreme Court is a, quote, live ball. And he says he will give the commission 6 months, and then it will give its answers, and then he'll see what he does then.
Look, we just, does that coincide with the remainder of the 2021 Supreme Court term to see how they decide under new Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett?
Exactly. Now,
who's to say? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Right. Now, Michael Brendan Doherty...
Is it an implied threat that we're saying rule the way we want or else?
Yeah, well, and a threat that John Roberts will immediately acquiesce to. Now,
Switch in Time That Saved 9, Part 2?
Exactly.
Sorry,
exactly.
I'll stop interrupting.
That's fine. Now, Michael Brendan Doherty from National Review thinks this is actually a good sign, that this is basically Joe Biden saying, effectively, I'm not going to pack the court. Because, first of all, so he's going to give this commission 6 months to come up with its answer, which, you don't need 6 months. Okay, you don't need 6 months to figure this out. So that's going to take up 6 months of his presidency, just waiting.
Yep.
It'll also include a full term of the Supreme Court, during which the Supreme Court will answer the legal challenges to the Affordable Care Act, which has been the big Democrat bugaboo. The big Democrat bugaboo is Amy Coney Barrett's going to overturn the Affordable Care Act. Judge Barrett could not have telegraphed more clearly that she's not going to overturn the Affordable Care Act during this hearing. Like, she's saying, like, there are different issues involved here than there were last time. Like, okay, in the 2012 Affordable Care Act decision, it was about the constitutionality of the individual mandate, and that was thought to be central to the whole law. But now, since the individual mandate has been set to a $0 tax/fine, it doesn't matter. You know, it's a severability question. Whether or not the Affordable Care Act is whether or not the individual mandate is unconstitutional, that's separate from whether or not the whole Affordable Care Act should be ruled unconstitutional as a result. So Judge Barrett could not have telegraphed more clearly, I'm not going to overturn the whole Affordable Care Act. And 6 months from now, or at least 6 months into a Biden presidency, that will be very clear. So maybe then there's less urgency on the Democrats' side to overturn to expand the number of justices on the Supreme Court. Maybe by that point we're closer to the 2022 elections, and Democrats don't want to take a vote on that. So Doherty thinks this is a good sign. It means he's probably not going to try to pack the Supreme Court. I don't know. I hope so, because as we've been saying on the show, court packing would be disastrous. Okay, it would be disastrous in no small part because, look, pro-life politics has been in large part an effort to get justices on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, and I think we are there. All right, we'll be back with more right here on Right to Life Radio, Power Talk 96.7, AM 1400, and the iHeartRadio app. Right to Life Radio coming at you. This is Somebody's Baby. Thank you to Jackson Brown. Yes, Jackson Brown is literally standing right here next to me singing this song with his entire band. Right to Life Radio is brought to you, as always, by Right to Life of Central California. Those of you who don't know what we do, Right to Life of Central California is a local pro-life education and outreach organization. We do all kinds of wonderful stuff. If you want to learn about us, go to rtlcc.org. If you like this show and want to support it and the work that we do, you can give to Right to Life of Central California. And one of the best ways to do that, as I'm trying to fight down a burp, there we go, coming behind the curtain here, is to join our 300 Club. The 300 Club is a great way for you to support the work of Right to Life. Basically, for $25 a month, that's $300 a year, you can support all of our work. In particular, I would like to thank all of our supporters who have signed up for the 300 Club. You can go to rtlcc.org/300 Club. I was also told to wish a happy 50th birthday to Brian Delana. Brian, happy birthday to you. Your mom said I should wish you a very happy birthday. So there you go. Happy birthday to all the Delana family. Well, I guess not all of their birthdays, but a happy birthday to Brian nonetheless. Yeah. And best wishes to the entire extended Delana family. All right. Okay. Let's get into the story. Now, I want to talk about, as we've been discussing Joe Biden and his big dodge on whether or not he's going to pack the Supreme Court. And again, understand what's driving all of this. The drive behind court packing has nothing to do with, oh no, how will the justices decide, regulatory law? Will they give enough appropriate deference to federal regulatory agencies? Oh no, what about telecommunications law? Oh no, what about not even hot button things like the Second Amendment or things like that. The thing that's driving the whole thing is abortion. The left is incensed and terrified and furious that this dang Amy Coney Barrett, this evil handmaiden woman who's just only on the Supreme Court because her husband let her, that she's gonna overturn Roe v. Wade. This evil patriarchal white woman who, how dare she adopt those kids from Haiti? That this evil woman is going to overturn Roe v. Wade. That is the only thing that is driving this court packing. It is the only issue that is going to drive the pro-choice side, the left, so crazy as to want to pack the Supreme Court. This unprecedented thing that was tried one time in 1937 and which FDR could not even accomplish, even though he was a Democrat and the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress by like a 3/4 majority. So abortion is the thing that's driving this. And there are a few Democrats who have exemplified their abortion enthusiasm, their legalized abortion enthusiasm, quite like Kamala Harris. Now, Biden has said, I'm going to give this commission 6 months to examine the question of court packing, and then after 6 months, I'll make my decision. Well, Jonathan, not to be insensitive here, but Joe Biden, if elected, would be the oldest president in American history. Starting at day one, would be older than any man who has ever held the office. Every day he would serve in office, he would be setting a new record for the oldest man ever to serve as president.
And I think I need to check this, but it would pretty much be the case that Joe Biden would be older on his first day of his first term than Donald Trump would be on the last day of his second term.
Possibly. I don't know that that's true.
It's pretty close.
Well,
let me look.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Anyway, you can look that up, Jonathan. But yeah, Biden would be 78 years old and about a month. 78 years and about a month old. So Biden would be really, really old. And
well, and to say, I know we have some elderly or seasoned citizens who listen to the show.
By the way, I'm not saying Biden is going to die within the first 6 months of his pregnancy of natural causes.
Presidency.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said pregnancy.
Oh, jeez. That was presidency. Now that would be a big surprise. No, I don't think Biden is going to die within the first 6 months of his presidency. Certainly not of natural causes. Dang it! I really ruined that joke. That was going to be a funny joke. I was going to be slyly implying that Kamala Harris was going to murder him, and instead I said pregnancy instead of presidency.
It's all right.
Darn
hey,
it.
You know what? But it's a Freudian slip because of Kamala Harris. I mean, she does support murdering people within the first 6 months of the pregnancy.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, all right. So Biden is going to give this commission 6 months to advise him whether or not to pack the Supreme Court. But there's this lingering thing. Biden is really, really old. 60% of Americans don't think that Biden is going to finish his first term. There is a strong sense that Kamala Harris is the president in waiting. Now, no one's saying that out loud. I don't think Biden has said, frankly, that he's not going to run for a second term, but I think he has mentioned something about being kind of a caretaker president. So this is the one thing I fear. Some people are reading this commission that Biden is establishing to advise him whether or not he should pack the court. Okay, this guy who was on the Senate Judiciary Committee for like 800 years and was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Somehow he needs advice on whether or not the Supreme Court should be packed. If he's going to give this commission 6 months to decide, maybe this is just an elaborate way of buying time before Kamala Harris is actually the president, and she then starts calling the shots. And let's just understand, I think one of the reasons why the Biden campaign has not had a clear message is because I think there is genuine disagreement between the nominee and his running mate. This is just me. Now, during the Democratic primary, let's remember, both Biden and Harris were running for president in the primary, during which Kamala Harris basically said Joe Biden was a racist, but
that
I guess
little
we've
girl
patched over.
Was me.
I guess we've patched over our differences there. I guess Biden's magically not a racist anymore when he offers you the vice presidency and perhaps ultimately the presidency. So Kamala Harris
wouldn't be the first time she had accepted a job from an older man.
Hey.
Just saying.
Well, yeah, that's fair. She did kind of get her start in politics from Willie Brown. Anyway, I don't think we're implying any kind of inappropriate hanky-panky between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Unlike
God forbid.
Unlike in the situation with Kamala Harris and Willie Brown.
No implying was needed.
Whom she did date. So they was very openly in a relationship with. Anyway, so Kamala Harris during the Democrat primaries in 2019, expressed her support for what she referred to as judicial reform. And what Harris has been saying is beyond just expanding the number of justices on the Supreme Court, she basically looks at what the Republicans have done with the judiciary since Donald Trump took office. And let's recall what they did. Okay, from 2014 to 2016, Mitch McConnell basically did not allow Barack Obama to get any judges confirmed. Almost none. So when Trump took office, he had a backlog of about 100 judgeships that were open and that needed to be filled. And he and Mitch McConnell have filled all of them. Okay, so in 4 years in office, President Trump has nominated 3 Supreme Court justices, a gazillion federal district court judges, and a gazillion, critically important, federal circuit court judges. Okay, so the circuit court judges are in between the Supreme Court and the district courts. They're very, very important judgeships. And some of the stuff that Harris was saying was not just to pack the Supreme Court, but basically to split up a lot of the circuit courts, add to the number of federal circuit court judgeships in order for basically to allow a court packing scheme that's not just at the level of the Supreme Court, but all throughout the federal judiciary, and create more and more and more seats so that Democrats can nominate replacements for those seats and confirm them in the Senate. So this is the stuff that Harris has been throwing around as her suggested idea for court packing. So you have within the same ticket the presidential candidate who was the most skeptical of court packing, and as the vice presidential nominee who could very well become the president, the person most aggressively in favor of court packing. And that is what I think has led to this sort of weird dynamic. And I think it's at the root of this delay tactic by Biden saying, I'm going to have this commission be established and give it 6 months. In 6 months' time, 6 months after, Inauguration Day, do we have 100% confidence that Joe Biden's going to be president? I mean, I guess, nothing in life is certain. I don't know that 6 months from now I'm going to even be alive.
That's true.
But I think I have more confidence that I'm going to be alive in 6 months than that Joe Biden's going to be alive in 6 months. Or that I'm going to have a job that I'm not going to retire from. I mean, it could very well be that Joe gets in office, has a couple of months, maybe has a health thing pop up. Maybe decides, you know what, I'm just not really feeling it, and I think I need to step back. And then all of a sudden, Kamala Harris is president. So I think this could be just a way of buying time on Joe Biden's part, such that ultimately this decision gets made by a future President Harris.
And it's very convenient because then he doesn't have to explain the cognitive dissonance of him saying, well, okay, look, I know I said this for my entire senatorial career. I know I actually won the nomination by...
In part because this is what I said.
Yes.
Yeah.
And pushing back against Pete Buttigieg and his crazy idea of a 15-member court that's 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 people decided upon by the other justices. I mean, it's just...
Yeah. Pete Buttigieg's idea was so stupid, it sort of... I don't even want to get into it.
No.
If the guy couldn't even get a Trader Joe's in South Bend, Indiana, and yet he thinks he's got better ideas for the Supreme Court.
Your wife Holly's great grudge still many years later.
Yeah. So Pete Buttigieg, for those who don't know, my wife and I went to Notre Dame, which is right near South Bend, Indiana, and Pete Buttigieg was the mayor of South Bend. So my wife Holly has always had an axe to grind against Pete Buttigieg for various aspects of South Bend's civic life that were not up to standard. The chief flaw being the lack of a Trader Joe's. So and now shockingly, as soon as Buttigieg leaves office, guess what they're getting? Getting a Trader Joe's right next to Notre Dame.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable. Anyway, so that is, I guess that is the fear here. The fear here is expanding the number of justices on the Supreme Court in order to keep Roe v. Wade on the books. And we've talked about Roe a number of times on the show. But just to reiterate, what Roe v. Wade does, what Planned Parenthood versus Casey does, which is Roe's successor, is it says that abortion is a constitutional right, that it's embedded in the Constitution itself. If it's embedded in the Constitution itself, that means individual states can't pass normal laws to regulate it. You can't have a state pass a normal or moderate abortion law saying, all right, abortion is legal except up to 20 weeks of is legal except when you get to the 20-week point of pregnancy, it's illegal. Abortion is legal until fetal viability, and then it's totally illegal. Abortion is legal in the first trimester, but nothing past that. You can't pass laws like that because the Supreme Court has said abortion is embedded in the federal Constitution, and a normal law can't contradict the Constitution. So that is why the left, the pro-choice left, is fighting, crawling, biting tooth and nail all over themselves to make sure that Roe v. Wade stays the law of the land, going even so far as to try to pack the Supreme Court, so to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court to attain this ideological outcome, something that hasn't been tried since the 30s when the Supreme Court has been at 9 members for 150 years. I don't think Biden will do it, but I think Kamala Harris would. All right, we'll be back with our closing thoughts on Right to Life Radio right after the break. George Strait with us here on Right to Life Radio. God bless you, George. Thank you all so much for listening to Right to Life Radio. As I think Jonathan's stepping on and disconnected my headphones there. I totally can't hear because Jonathan was grooving out to George Strait. There we go.
It's too good.
Thank
too
you.
good of music.
Thank you,
I'm just not used to those groovy country sounds.
There you go. Thank you all so much for listening to Right to Life Radio. Production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. All right. I think we're going to close out the show in this last segment here, and thank you all so much for listening, by talking just a little retrospective on Judge Barrett. It appears Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to be confirmed to the Supreme Court on Monday. The Democrats threw the best they had at her. The media threw the best ammo they had at her. The New York Times published a bizarrely toned piece on her adoption of her 2 children from Haiti on Monday, which I was saying, I forget if I said this on John Gerardi show or on Right to Life Radio. By the way, John Gerardi show, 6 to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, right here on Power Talk. Also on the podcast. Just look for John Gerardi show. I was saying at various points that it was going to be between the Judiciary Committee hearings and the Judiciary Committee vote that the Democrats, if they had some skeleton in her closet, that they would throw it out, because that was sort of the timeline with Kavanaugh. It was after the hearings and then before the vote. All of a sudden, we learned about all of these people allegedly accusing Brett Kavanaugh of being the greatest criminal mastermind, mass rapist in human history, with no corroborating evidence. So I was saying that that's what's going to happen with the Barrett nomination. If they have anything, they'll try to release it before the vote in the Judiciary Committee, but after her actual hearings are done, so she doesn't have an opportunity to defend herself. And it will delay things, expand things, so that you can't have a vote on it before the election. Well, they tried that last Monday. They had this big story in the New York Times about her and the process of adopting her 2 children. 2 of her children were adopted from Haiti. And the tone of the article was very strange. I think you'll agree with me, Jonathan.
Yes.
It was like at times like really hostile, but then had to kind of acknowledge at the end of the day, like there's nothing like that bad here or out of the ordinary here. Like she adopted these kids, and what a nice thing to adopt children.
Or is it?
Or is it? And my wife actually noted, my wife is smarter than I am. She noted that the New York Times writer who wrote the story is like one of their big like investigative like bloodhounds, like who's like really just all over this. And it's so, I mean, it's so transparent what the Times was trying to do. They were trying to find dirt.
The smoking gun.
They were trying to find the smoking gun, that whatever could delay the nomination. And they were even asking people like, oh, we talked with this woman who also adopted children from this place in Haiti, who said while she disagrees with Judge Barrett's politics and disagrees with the timing of her nomination, it's like,
yes.
what the heck does that matter? This is just another woman who adopted kids from Haiti. Like, why do we care about her? Like, you have to preface everything that anyone says about Judge Barrett.
The process is illegitimate.
The process is illegitimate. Anyway, yeah, the process of having a president nominate someone to fill a vacancy and then having the Senate vote to confirm or not confirm that person to the vacancy, which is described in the Constitution. Anyway, that's illegitimate. Anyway. So they have nothing to stop her. I think having Judge Barrett on the court is critically important. I think it's critically important for possibly overturning Roe v. Wade. I think John Roberts in a 5-4 court is never going to rule to overturn Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood versus Casey.
I think that's fair.
Especially if it's just him and 4 other dude justices.
He won't even rule in a 5-4 court to overturn or to uphold a Louisiana abortion restriction.
Right, exactly. Nevertheless, if it's a 6-3 court, I think it's a different story. And especially because I think he might want to have a role, because as the Chief Justice, if he's in the majority, he assigns who writes the opinion. And so he might assign the opinion to himself in order to limit the opinion in certain ways to kind of moderate things. So I find it very likely that Judge Barrett's presence on the court could actually lead to an overturning of Roe v. Wade. As a lot of people have said that she is Robert's insurance, and I think that's definitely true. you know what? It's a thing where, regardless of whether or not Trump wins or loses, there are certainly things Trump could have done better on the pro-life front in his presidency. We haven't been uncritical of the president in this show. I mean, there are certain things with embryo-destructive stem cell research funding, other things that he hasn't been perfect. Whether or not he wins this election, getting 3 justices on the Supreme Court to potentially overturn Roe v. Wade will have been one of the greatest accomplishments any pro-life president has ever made. And Judge Barrett, having Judge Barrett on the court is one of the great victories of this presidency, possibly the greatest single thing this presidency has ever done. So congratulations to the president, to Mitch McConnell, and to Judge Barrett. Thanks, Old Blue Eyes Frank Sinatra, for singing us out. This has been Right to Life Radio.